pretty general stuff like, ask about you, who you are, where you come from, where you. Oh, so we're not starting yet, are we? We're recording now, but we can cut it and start whenever we want to. Right? How you guys doing today? My name is Raul de la Vega, branch manager here at Patriot Home Loans, and today, Mr. Matthew Pare, personal injury attorney, local right here to Eastlake, is joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. And I'm going to be asking Matt some questions. I know him pretty well, so if we seem familiar with each other, it's because we are. And I think um, I know he's shared some stories with me. He's had some major success with some of his recent cases. So maybe he'll go into to tell us those stories if he can. But tell us a little bit about yourself, Matt, who you are, where you're from, and how long you've been doing business.
Sure. All right. Well, thanks again, Raul. It's great to be here. Again, my name is Matt Pare. I am a personal injury attorney with an office here in Eastlake, Chula Vista. I'm originally from a small town in Maine, but came out to California for law school, and I've had my own law practice for about 12 years now. So pretty well established, and like you mentioned, have some great success in resolving personal injury cases, and that's what I do.
Awesome. And have you always been independent?
You know, I worked at a law firm, Raul, before going out on my own, but just for a year, essentially, kind of to learn the ropes and then, get familiar with the practical aspects of practicing law. And then after that experience, I ventured out on my own and have had my own law practice ever since as a sole practitioner, really focused on injury cases, representing people that have been significantly hurt due to the negligence of someone else. If they have a very severe injury in particular, it can be a valuable claim. And that's what I help with. I'm their guide in pursuing the compensation for their injuries.
Cool. And the main form that people find you, how do people find you other than, the obvious referral from a past client or a friend? How do people mainly find you?
Yeah, definitely, the referral marketing is really key. But beyond that, I do have some really excellent testimonials on Google, for example. So Google reviews, if people do search for personal injury attorney in Eastlake, I would certainly pop up that way. If people wanted to dig a little bit further, they can also look into the state bar information about different attorneys. But as far as a track record of success, I would say the testimonials are a big part of that. Looking at those past verdicts and past settlements that we've been able to achieve, through about 12 years of experience at this point. So that's pretty much it.
So it sounds like your business, you don't market or anything, so it's all referrals, which is a really sound business, and it's not easy to just that be your business model, just referral only. So that's probably a testament to the way that you do business.
Thank you. I think so. That way, plus it establishes a good rapport and relationships with new clients if they have, some connection to you through a former client or someone that you know in your network. It just starts things off in the right foot usually. So.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Congratulations. It's definitely not an easy model to have, but because I have that model, it's the most rewarding because everybody you do business with, there's a trust there initially, so makes you want to work harder for the client, I would assume, right?
100%. Yeah. And so whenever you give a referral, of course, you're putting your reputation on the line and you want to make sure that you're doing a good job, not only on behalf of that client, but that referral partner as well, so that you can maintain a good relationship there. And, So yeah, I agree with that completely.
Um, what are some of the common types of injury cases that you mainly manage and would say are the ones you deal with the most?
Sure. So again, it's a personal injury. It would be the category of law, but within personal injury, which is somewhat broad, there are subcategories. For example, the most common would be an auto accident case. So if someone is involved in an auto accident, if someone runs a red light, or is hit by someone that was drinking and driving, or what have you, I can represent that victim and get them compensation for their injuries. Second type would be what they call premises liability cases. And what that is like a trip and fall case or a slip and fall case. If there's a dangerous condition in a particular location, and that could be anywhere from a sidewalk to a store. But if someone falls and hurts themselves because of a hazardous condition, that would be a premises liability case. And then the third type of personal injury case that I handle would be product defect cases. And so a product defect case, like the name suggests, is where there's a defective product that either has a manufacturing defect or a design defect. And if that ends up injuring someone, they can pursue a claim and get compensation. So a very good example of that would be the bicycle case that I had, where there was a defective bicycle that fell apart, where someone was riding the bike, and he ended up breaking his collarbone, had to have surgery, and we got him a really large settlement as a result of that, and that's a good product defect case.
And I've seen that bicycle in your office. I know exactly
Yep.
what you're talking about.
It sits here like a trophy.
Yeah, it's been there a couple of years now, so that's cool to see. I'm reminded of that story every time I see it. And I can see how it would be a reminder to you of working hard for your clients because there is that light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes we need that reminder.
Yeah.
Why? ¿Tú hablas de español?
Un poquito. Mi esposo es Mexicana, so she does a lot of my translation.
I like it. So you do service Spanish-speaking clients um, by the aid of your
Yeah,
wife, sometimes translating.
100%, 100%. I've had a lot of Spanish-speaking clients, and my wife, Spanish was her first language, so she helps me in the office on those cases in particular. So, happy to serve anyone in that community, regardless of background, and we can certainly make it work and have some effective communication.
Yeah, and the reason why I ask is because sometimes, um, the clients don't speak Spanish, especially some of the people in my social media, which we'll be seeing, or some of my past clients do not speak English perfectly. So I definitely want them to know that because I know that you do service Spanish-speaking clientele. So I wanted to make sure that
Yeah,
you shared that with them.
absolutely.
What is it that you sell? Like we all sell something, right? Like I sell good service, communication, um, ethical standards of doing
Right.
mortgages. What is your strength other than those personal injury cases which you spoke of earlier?
Right. Well, so one of the things that sets me apart from some other attorneys that practice in this area of the law is my accessibility. So, if you want an attorney that you're going to be able to speak directly to, that you're not going to have a hard time getting in touch with, those are a couple of selling points here because I do give out my cell phone number to my clients. If they want to text message me or call me, I'm very much open to that and extremely responsive. The other thing is that because I'm a sole practitioner and I have a relatively low case load, in other words, not thousands of cases, there's a lot of attention to detail on each and every case. So, by contrast, there are some law firms out there that are more like mills, or they have a really different business model where they have a high volume number of cases. But in my law practice, I'm a little bit more selective about the cases that I take on. And as a result of that, if I am able to take on a case, we're going to be dedicated to that cause completely, and to be, have it, give it the attention that it deserves, and to really see it all the way through.
It's contact, access, attention to detail, and not paralegals doing 75% of the job.
Very well put. Yeah, exactly right. So,
That's what I think.
um, every, yeah, every aspect of the case is going to be handled by me personally, and making sure that it's done right. And I also, one of the things that I bring to bear on these whole personal injury claims is a good working relationship with opposing counsel, with the insurance companies, and with a really a deep familiarity with how the system works. So, for example, just to give you an example, I have a current case now that involves a premises liability against the city of Chula Vista and a homeowners association, where because of my past cases, I have great relationship with the attorney representing the city and the attorney representing the HOA. And so, there's that level of respect and familiarity that can really be useful in coming to a resolution on the case, right? And so bringing to bear those relationships and that reputation helps a lot.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Professional courtesy, the way that you start anything in business, um, means a lot. It can make a process super hard or super simple. Um, so that's definitely important. And I'm sure you do have a great reputation because you're a cool guy at the end of the day. So I can see that perfectly. Neat. All right. So, um, professional, the way you were describing is professional courtesy and professional relationships with peers, and I think that does go a long way into making things a lot easier than they need, a lot easier, or simplifying things, because sometimes when you have people that just make things hard, it makes it twice as hard, right? Or if you have a bad attitude and you can't get along with anybody of any colleagues, whether they're on the opposing side, it makes everything harder. And I've seen it in my business. And
Right.
honestly, the first 4 years in my business, I was that guy that it wasn't like nobody liked to work with, because I was just real kind of hardcore about everything. Now I'm just, it's easier to to be friends with the opposing team. It's not war. It's easier to not be friends, but be cordial and be professional.
Yeah, well, there has
Like,
to be a good working relationship. And the thing about it is, on the personal injury cases, the reality is that the vast majority of the time the case is going to settle, right? Now, obviously, representing plaintiffs, we want the case to settle for the most amount of money possible. Um, but, in all likelihood, it's going to be a negotiated settlement where there has to be, at the end of the day, some mutually agreeable resolution that is acceptable to both sides. And so, if you approach that from a standpoint of, this is the enemy, or that sort of thing, it can be sort of self-defeating as far as trying to actually get a deal done. But if you, again, like you mentioned, have those courtesies and that good working relationship, it can all work out.
now, let's say I got hurt on, um, not the job, or maybe is that a different part of the law, like job related injuries, or is that something you handle as well?
It is. Thanks for asking. So typically when someone is injured in the course of their employment, the workers' compensation would be considered their exclusive remedy. and that would be a different type of a case. Now, there are some exceptions to that. Like, for example, if there's a third, be a case that I could take on. But if they're just trying to receive compensation from their employer for their injury, that's a straight up workers' compensation case.
Okay.
So there is a difference there. Just here's a quick example. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, like say if someone is working for UPS and at the UPS warehouse, a box falls on them and they get hurt, that's a workers' compensation claim. If the same person is working for UPS and they're driving a truck and someone crashes into them and hurts them, well, that's a third-party liability claim because they can sue that person that caused the car accident and get compensation from that person's insurance company. So, that's just an example of an exception where you can be hurt during the course of your employment and still pursue a third-party liability claim. It depends on the circumstances of how the injury took place.
Okay. And you can pursue both. It's not either or, right? You can pursue.
Yeah. If circumstances do give rise to the third-party liability claim, you can pursue both. Yep.
Okay. And what does your average client look like? Your ideal client, let's call it. Like, what is, like, I know who my ideal client is. Like, who do you think is your ideal client situation?
Yeah. So there's really three things that I like to describe that go into a really good personal injury case. The number one and most important thing is the severity of the injury. The severity of the injury is what drives the value in a personal injury case. So that's number one, most important. If you can imagine a circumstance where someone is, hospitalized, or they need surgery, or they're in the intensive care unit, or something like that, those are obviously much more valuable cases than someone who, needed outpatient treatment or did not require surgery. The second aspect that's really important is liability. And what that means is who is legally responsible for causing the accident to occur. In order to have a good personal injury case, there needs to be a solid theory of liability that explains why someone else is responsible for causing the accident. Naturally, if you yourself were negligent or, you caused the accident yourself, it's not going to be a good case. But if someone is clearly responsible for causing the accident to happen, that's a key component of a solid personal injury case. And the third requirement, really, for a personal injury case to be successful is insurance coverage. So the money that we obtain as compensation for someone's injuries comes from insurance companies, all right? In order for the process to really pay out at the end of the day and be successful, there needs to be insurance coverage. Now, usually that's in the form of an auto insurance policy. Sometimes it can be, commercial general liability insurance. It all depends on, what happened and who the defendant is. But really, there's going to be some insurance that factors into what we're able to recover. So those are the three things.
Now, what do you think are some misinformations that the general population here locally has as far as personal injury cases and attorneys and outcomes?
So I think one of the common misconceptions is that people who pursue a personal injury claim receive an exorbitant amount of money as a windfall, and it's sort of unjustified that they get a huge payout for their injury. The reality is that through this whole process, the insurance companies really need to justify paying out on injury claims by taking a very hard look at the medical records, at the expert testimony, at the course of treatment. Was it necessary and reasonable? So usually the valuation on the case is going to be, reasonable. And the plaintiffs in personal injury cases in most scenarios are not receiving a windfall. There's another misconception that it's easy to pursue a frivolous case and that there's a large number of frivolous cases that are filed where people sue over nothing or really trivial minor things. And, there's always the exception to the rule, but I would say by and large, there's not an overwhelming number of frivolous cases. And, sometimes there might be some that get some attention because they're kind of outrageous. But usually the solid, mainstream personal injury cases are well justified and reasonable in terms of the payout at the end of the day.
And how much does it cost, the average case or the average client that walks in and contacts you? Like, how do you get paid? How much does it cost? Is it on a case by case basis? Like, how is all that charged?
Right. So I work on what's called a contingency fee. And what that means is that the attorney's fees come out of the settlement when the case resolves. And specifically, it's 1/3 of the recovery if the case settles before litigation, or 40% if we do have to litigate and go to court, so to speak. Those numbers are relatively common for this area of the law, for this type of a law practice. But the other thing that I'll mention is this: as far as the finances go and the costs, I also advance the cost on my cases. So what that means is that when my clients come to me, they don't have to pay out of pocket for anything at all. And I make the financial investment on the case, advancing the costs for things like filing fees, service of process, expert witnesses, court reporters for depositions, every expense associated with pursuing the case, I pay for on behalf of my clients, so that when they come to me, they don't have to pay for anything. And so from the point of view of the client, that's a really beneficial position to be in, because they don't need to make a financial investment on the case. If I think the case has value, then I choose to take it, and then I make that investment on their behalf. Now, those advanced costs are reimbursable out of the settlement when the case resolves.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, because what people don't understand is that you're taking all the risk, right? Not only you're taking all the risk, if there's no reward, then you're the person that's out that money that you advanced, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so that's why, it has to be a somewhat selective process in terms of deciding what cases to take on. And, earlier we talked about, the injury, the liability, and insurance coverage. In order for me to take on a case, it's got to have those three elements to it, so that I know at the end of the day it'll pan out. And there is some element of risk to it that I'm shouldering for sure.
And also, it's good for people to keep in mind is that you're not going to take somebody out for a ride, and just charge, and then get no result, right? Because you're taking all the risk again. Um, I know it. Maybe in other forms of law it happens. Um, I've seen it in immigration law. So definitely good to know. Um,
What's great about the whole contingency fee arrangement is that me and my clients are on the same team, because we're each getting a portion of what we're able to recover. And so our interests are aligned. And the more that we settle the case for, the more I get paid and the more my clients recover as well. So, it's very different when you have a situation where an attorney is incentivized to waste time on the case and bill for unnecessary things, it almost puts the interests of the attorney adverse to the client because they're not on the same page. But for this area of the law, it's it's really it's a great type of a setup because my clients are on a team, a partnership, if you will. We're doing the claim by.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think more areas of the law should be that way, because I definitely know some areas of the law that doesn't make that dynamic in that way, regardless of what attorney you choose. There's some areas of the law that makes it, the longer the process goes, the more the attorney, um, the money flows, right? The more the attorney can charge and make. Um, and lastly, I wanted to kind of
Yeah,
finish with, like,
right.
if somebody wants to sit down with you for a consultation, how much would it cost them?
Well, it's completely free. Happy to give a consultation at no charge whatsoever, I don't have any fee to sit down and talk with people, and that kind of goes along with the idea of the contingency fee as well, which is that I'm only going to get paid out of the settlement if we resolve the case. So at no time would someone have to pay out of pocket to meet with me or even pursue their case. That's just not how it works. So if there is a scenario where someone thinks they might have a good personal injury case, please contact me. And I would love to have the opportunity to discuss that further and to explore that possibility and really take a good look at it. So thank you.
Hey, Matt, well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to meet with us, and we're going to put it on our social media for our past client and friends and family. I really thank you for taking the time.
No, my pleasure.
Um,
Thanks, Raul.
and we'll be